YouTube, what's going on? Couple of things. Not all that long ago, I did a couple videos, my top 10 Greenlight castings or toolings, my top 5 Auto World toolings. And then last night I did a video on the corrections that were made to the Greenlight 240Z. And that brought on a question of what is the second worst Greenlight tooling? And I don't really know. Um, uh, Sorry, watching football here in the background. So the 240 stands alone as the worst. Now, the second worst, there really isn't anything close to that. I think every other Greenlight tooling is fairly decent to an extent. The issues I have with these cars I'm going to show you aren't necessarily with the tooling itself, but more with um, the assembly of the cars. Like this Honda Civic, as an example, this is an SI Honda Civic. The tooling is nice. Lens headlights and taillights. It looks to be fairly decent with the proportions. Where it just loses me is with the stance. I mean, that's just awful. That's Johnny Lightning-esque right there. Silhouette looks okay because it hides the stance issue. The other side, same thing. It just doesn't look good. The tooling is nice, but the execution is poor. And so this would be in my worst five for Greenlight. All of these issues, though, that I'm about to show you could be fixed without having to retool the cars if they just focused and just improve the quality, the build quality a little bit. Then I think a lot of these issues would go away. So this one here is another one that comes to mind. I've always had issues with this Greenlight tooling, although this particular release is might be one of the better ones, but um, I don't think the tooling is great. I don't think it's terrible. I just think it's an average GTR tooling. Sometimes they put it out, it looks really good. Sometimes they put it out and it looks really bad. But a very common issue with this tool is that the base gets spun offset. And that creates gangster lean. It creates a stance issue on one side. You can see this one leans a little bit to the driver's side. You can see the wheel well issues here. It is not supposed to look like that. So this would probably be my second worst. Well, the Civic, I don't know. No particular order here. I'll just give you my least favorite five, or however many are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so these are my worst five outside of the 240. Now, like I said, that one stands alone as the worst. Okay, this one here. Um, Again, it's just the stance issue. The Camaro tooling prior to this never had stance issues. You could make the argument that the wheels are a little bit too small for that car, or too big rather. But this one here, like the Civic, I think the tooling here is nice. It's just the execution. It's just the stance. And the thing is, like the GTR and even this one here, I've got that civilian deco Camaro convertible, and with those wheels and tires, I think the casting looks great. And there are some GTR releases that I have that I think look great. So it's just more inconsistency. These are not hopeless toolings like that 240Z is. Although I really think Greenlight did as good of a job as they could, making it better without completely scrapping it. So this one would be my worst 5. I mean, even the silhouette, if you look at the rear wheel well, that's not right. Doesn't look right. But if Greenlight could tighten up on these stance issues, then I think, you know. So a lot of you might be surprised to see this tooling on this list, but it's a very hit and miss tool. The deco on this thing is just brilliant. It's amazing. It looks great. But it's just the way the base gets spun to the body. It just causes issues. A lot of gangster leaning heavy towards the passenger side. So the passenger side stance will look good. Because of the lean, it's really making this side look proper. But the problem with that is it makes the driver's side look silly. And see how it's just not right. This casting, just like the others, I have examples that are poor, and I have examples that are really good. Like this thing here is amazing. This is by far my favorite second gen Trans Am that Greenlight has done. I love this car. It's so clean. There's really nothing wrong with it. It's not as nice as the Auto World, but I don't know. I just think this one is money. No lean issue. See, it's straight. The base is proper. The stance is proper. So, and it's the same tooling as the Smokey and the Bandit. So it's just the consistency in which the cars are assembled. Now, the last one is another one where I have examples that are decent and some that are really poor, and that's the R34. I've noticed a theme with Greenlight. It seems like they're not strong at all when it comes to the Japanese, although they did do a really good job on the 510. The jury's still out on the Hako. I don't have that one yet, but hopefully by the end of this week I'll have a review. See, from this angle, like, this car looks great. The stance is too high. That's the big issue for me. Otherwise, I think this is acceptable, but you get one where the base is offset, and it's probably at least a 50% chance that you're going to. I don't even think you have a coin flip's chance of finding one of these with the base that's put on correctly. I think it's probably more like 1 in 4, just from my experience. But when it's done right, it's respectable. It's decent. It's definitely... If this is your worst tooling, you're doing a good job. And, I racked my brain. I might put the Challenger tooling on this list. It's not very well proportioned. Tires are way too wide. It has the plastic top on it. So that car should probably be on this list. But yeah, it's crazy. This thing looks actually kind of good on camera. But let me show you what that car is supposed to look like. I did bring out the Kyosho. And this is as proper as you can get with this car. You can see how the ride height is far more accurate. The stance is far more accurate. It's very well proportioned. Side view mirrors are correct on this. The flare of the rear quarter panels is accurate. But, with all of that said, I have to admit, Greenlight did a nice job on this. If they could just get consistent with the way they're building them. Because all of the issues are with the build. They're with the assembly. They're just, I don't know. I don't know what to say, That's just how I feel about it. Another car that has a ton of issues with the base when it's spun is this Trans Am tooling. I don't think your odds are better on this one of finding a proper base than the R34, but it's still probably a 1 in 3 chance that you're going to find one with an offset base. And it sucks when you do, because it's, the casting's no good. It's no good. When I find one with an offset base, I always replace it if it's a casting that I really want, because I just can't stand it. Like, there's no bigger pet peeve to me than a bad stance. And an offset base, that's what it does. It destroys the stance of the car. And if the car has a bad stance, I don't want it. I don't want it in my collection. It becomes a wheel donor or a parts donor. The stance to me, it's funny because 2 years ago, I wouldn't be saying this. I felt differently about it. But as I've evolved as a collector, the car looking right is the number one most important thing to me, even ahead of scale and accuracy. But accuracy kind of ties in with looking proper. But the one thing that will just ruin the look of a die-cast car faster than anything else, it's not bad paint, it's not a bad deco, it's not even poor build quality, it's having a bad stance. That is the number one thing, and that's why I wish Greenlight would make that their number one priority when they design a new tool. This is an old Greenlight tooling. Their older toolings seem to have much better stances. Like this stance here on this Fox body is pretty much spot on. The wheels are accurate in the way they set in the wheel wells. The ride height is pretty much how it would have been. So I don't know. I don't know if they got someone different that's designing these castings now than they did, 5 or 10 years ago when they were a young company. I don't know. But you can definitely feel a difference. Like that's an early Greenlight car. This is a late Greenlight car, and I think this one looks good, but it doesn't feel nearly as solid as the Fox body does. This one is bordering on an M2 feel, although that looks better than 90% of anything that M2's ever put out, in my opinion. I don't think M2, I think, 10% of what they produce seems to be eye catchy to me. But here's another close look here at this Trans Am. This is from the Hollywood series. I think it was Series 8, but I don't remember. Just an awesome car. And, the thing is, if this base was offset, then it would be useless. It would be a useless casting to have. And as I've said in videos past, this rear quarter angle is the angle. This is the angle that really makes the casting vulnerable, as um, it exposes the stance issue more than any other angle. Stance issues can be hidden from the silhouette, but they cannot be hidden from the rear quarter. And sometimes from the front quarter, they don't look as bad, but the front quarter can also expose casting flaws. But that, to me, I'll tell you, if the Auto World Trans Am didn't exist, this thing right here would be spot on. Well, by the way, this one is a 1979. This one is a 1980. This Bandit, while the base is a little bit offset, it's pretty mild. It's not nearly as bad as it usually is. Anyways, hopefully this helps. Hopefully it helps answer some questions. These are, in my opinion, the worst Greenlight toolings. But again, it's not because of the casting itself. It's because of the build quality and the inconsistencies with the assembly. That's where the issues lie. So that's a good thing, because what that means is Greenlight can clean it up with with less investment. But I am curious to get that Hakoska. I should have it hopefully by the end of the week, and so we'll take a look at it. Everything I've seen, sample photos, it looks average, but some of the personal photos I've seen, it seems to look pretty good in those photos. So I'm interested to get it, but when I do, we'll take a look. I don't think it'll be in this group of cars, but who knows? It could. It's a Japanese car. The only Japanese car that Greenlight makes that's not in my worst 5 is the 510. So, in fact, I think I might have even put that in my top 10. If I didn't, I know it was at least an honorable mention. So, anyways, Americans are better designing American cars. Japanese are better at designing Japanese cars. I think Kyosho's another good example of that. Their American cars, as nice as they are, I don't know that they're the nicest examples in the scale. So, all right, everyone. Have a good rest of your weekend, and I'll holler at you all the next diecast video.